You know that feeling. You've had, let's say, less than great experience with a business, and your first thought might be, okay, I need to leave a review. Maybe post something online, right? We've probably all felt that urge. But imagine if that complaint, that uh, online comment, just snowballed, turned into something huge, something that didn't just vent your frustration, but like destroyed someone's livelihood. And then you end up in court owing well over $1 million. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a Dallas County court case that honestly, it really grabbed my attention when I first read about it. Made national headlines, and for good reason. It forces us to look at that really tricky balance between, free speech online and the actual real-world harm words can cause. We're going to be pulling directly from the court documents, news reports, really trying to get to the heart of what went down between this wedding photographer and a couple accused of defaming her online. And the result, a massive $1.08 million judgment against them. So our mission here is to really understand this specific case, the legal stuff involved, and what it all means for accountability online. All right, let's set the scene. It starts with Andrea Polito. She was a well-established Dallas wedding photographer, 13 years in business, pretty successful. Then in October 2014, she gets hired by Neely and Andrew Moldovan for their wedding. The contract itself seemed pretty standard for this kind of work. Polito met with Neely beforehand. They talked through the package, the details, album covers, other potential costs. And a really key point stated right there in the contract was this: wedding day negatives will be provided when the final album and Warbox order is delivered. Seems simple enough, but wow, did that become a flashpoint? Yeah, the whole thing really blew up over the album cover fee. It was, what, $125 or $150? The Moldovans claimed this was some kind of hidden charge they weren't told about.
Right. But Polito's side was, look, I explained this during the consultation. She said she'd even tweaked the package price initially to help fit Neely's budget. And this is important. Later on, Polito actually offered to just waive that cover cost, trying to smooth things over.
But that offer came too late.
Exactly. It came after the Moldovans had already gone to the media. So the chance for a simple fix was basically gone.
And they didn't just, send an angry email. They went straight to the local news.
Oh, yeah. Immediately. January 12, 2015. That's the same day this whole album fee argument really started. They contacted NBC5, even had a reporter come to their house.
And the narrative they pushed was?
The big, catchy accusation. Polito was holding their pictures hostage.
Wow. Okay, so that sounds dramatic.
And what's fascinating here is Neely's background. She wasn't just any customer. She was a lifestyle and beauty blogger. Her income literally depended on blog traffic, social media, sponsored posts. She even taught courses on blogging.
Ah, so she knew how to work the system, basically, how to get attention online.
Precisely. Her whole business model revolved around maximizing reach and engagement. So you could argue she was uniquely positioned, maybe even incentivized, to turn this dispute into, well, online content. A publicity engine.
But so it suggests this might not have been just a spontaneous outburst of frustration, maybe more calculated.
That's certainly what the court eventually seemed to believe. And they didn't just stop with that one news story. No. They pushed this narrative everywhere. Neely's blogs, a complete waste of makeup. It starts with coffee. Plus, Google reviews, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even texts and emails. It was a digital onslaught.
And what were they actually saying? Was it just, we're unhappy, or did it get nastier?
Oh, it got much nastier. Very specific, damaging accusations. Things like Polito was dishonest in her fees, had hidden charges. She was cheating, scamming, even blatantly stealing money. Neely apparently even posted somewhere she was pretty sure Polito's business is done.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just their own posts. They were liking other really vicious comments from third parties.
Like what?
Well, one comment they liked, actually, and falsely, accused Polito of giving another reviewer AIDS.
Whoa. Okay. That's way beyond a complaint about a photo album cover.
Absolutely. And their private messages, which came out later, showed the intent pretty clearly.
What did they say?
Things like they wanted to completely ruin her business. And one message apparently said something like, screw them over, LOL, via public shaming. It really painted a picture of malice, not just dissatisfaction.
So the impact on Andrea Polito, I mean, you can imagine.
Devastating and immediate. Her business, built over 13 years, was just gone overnight.
You hear about businesses being sensitive to online reviews, but this sounds extreme.
It really was. Think about this. She usually books 75 to 100 weddings a year. In 2015, after this all hit the fan, she booked 2. Just 2.
That's unbelievable.
Her income, just looking at the first few months of the year, January to May, it dropped from somewhere around $180,000, maybe $250,000 in previous years, down to $38,000 in 2015. She had to shut down her business Facebook page because it was flooded with like over 50 one-star reviews,
Yeah.
probably mostly from people who'd never even met her, let alone hired her.
Just jumping on the bandwagon.
Right. And she had to move out of her studio space she'd had for a decade.
The personal cost must have been immense, too.
She talked about feeling humiliated, shamed. I mean, it got so bad financially, she had to loan her own business $40,000 from her personal savings just to try and stay afloat.
Okay, so you're facing that level of destruction. What do? She decided to fight back.
She did. In March 2015, she filed a lawsuit.
And she didn't hold back on the claims, did she? What exactly did she allege? Can you break those down for us?
Sure. It was a multi-pronged attack, legally speaking. First, defamation. That's basically making false statements that hurt someone's reputation, and specifically defamation per se. That's a legal term, meaning the statements were so obviously harmful, like accusing someone of a crime or being terrible at their job, that the law just presumes damage happened. You don't need extra proof of harm for the claim itself.
Okay, defamation. What else?
Then business disparagement. Similar to defamation, but it specifically targets the business itself, its reputation, its financial standing.
Makes sense.
Also, tortious interference with prospective contracts. Fancy term, but it basically means they deliberately interfered with her ability to get future clients, future contracts.
Like telling people not to hire her.
Exactly. And finally, civil conspiracy. This alleged that Neely and Andrew worked together, planned together, to carry out these damaging actions.
That's quite the list. So this went to trial.
It did. And the jury, in a 10-2 decision, found the Moldovans liable. On pretty much all counts, it seems.
And the verdict, what was the bottom line for the Moldovans?
The bottom line was $1.08 million. A huge sum.
Wow. How did that break down?
The jury awarded $880,000 for things like injury to her reputation, her mental anguish, and the profits she lost. And then on top of that, another $200,000 in punitive damages.
Punitive damages. That's like a punishment, right? To send a message.
Exactly. It's meant to punish the defendant for particularly bad behavior and deter others from doing the same. It says this wasn't just wrong, it was malicious.
Okay, so a massive verdict. But the Moldovans didn't just accept it, I assume. They appealed.
They did appeal, and their main argument on appeal hinged on something called the Texas Citizens Participation Act, or TCPA.
TCPA, what is that exactly?
It's Texas's version of an anti-SLAPP law. SLAPP stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation. Basically, these laws are designed to protect people's free speech rights.
How so?
They aim to stop powerful entities from filing frivolous lawsuits just to silence critics or shut down discussions on matters of public interest. The Moldovans argued their online posts were exactly that, speech about a service in the marketplace, a matter of public concern, and should be protected under the TCPA.
Okay, so they're trying to use a free speech shield.
Oh.
Did it work?
Well, here's where it gets interesting. The appellate court actually agreed with the Moldovans on one key point. They said, yes, the TCPA does apply here. Their posts were related to a service in the marketplace, so it fell under the law's protection. That overturned the trial court's initial finding just on that specific point.
So wait, if the TCPA applied, why wasn't the case dismissed? That seems like a win for the Moldovans, no?
It seems like it, but no. This is the crucial part. Even if the TCPA applies, the lawsuit isn't automatically thrown out. The person suing in this case, Polito, still has a chance to keep the lawsuit alive if they can meet a specific legal standard. They have to show the court clear and specific evidence for each essential element of their claims. Basically prove they have a real substantial case.
Ah, so it's like, okay, your speech gets some protection, but not if it's demonstrably false, malicious, and causes real harm, and the plaintiff can prove it right now.
That's a pretty good way to put it. Polito had to establish what's called a prima facie case, enough evidence on the face of it to show her claims were valid. And the appellate court found that she did exactly that.
Okay, so let's talk about that evidence. How did Polito show, with clear and specific evidence, that the Moldovans' core claims were false? Like the holding pictures hostage thing.
It really came down to the contract and her actions. For the hostage claim, she pointed directly to the contract clause we mentioned earlier. It explicitly said negatives are provided when the album is done. It wasn't arbitrary, it was contractual. Plus, she owned the copyrights until final delivery, which is standard, so not hostage-taking, just following the agreement.
And the hidden fees.
Again, she showed the fee was discussed and included in the materials. And crucially, she provided evidence that she offered to waive the fee entirely to resolve the issue. That really undercut the idea that she was being deceitful or trying to gouge them. It showed the opposite, really an attempt to satisfy a client before they went nuclear online.
That makes sense. You countered the narrative with the actual facts and documents. What about proving malice for the business disparagement claim? That seems harder to prove than just falsehood.
It can be, but here, the Moldovan's own words were pretty damning. Remember those private messages? Wanting to completely ruin her business, screw them over, LOL. That's pretty direct evidence of malicious intent, going way beyond just expressing dissatisfaction. You combine that clear intent with the documented catastrophic financial losses Polito suffered.
Yeah, the booking numbers, the income drop.
Right. It painted a clear picture for the court. False statements made with malice, causing direct financial harm. That's business disparagement.
It really sounds like they dug their own grave with those messages.
It certainly didn't help their case. And for that tortious interference claim interfering with future business, there was also concrete proof.
You mentioned a specific example earlier.
Yes, there was evidence of a Facebook conversation Neely had with an event coordinator at a venue called the Petroleum Club. Polito used to shoot a lot of weddings there, like 30 or 40. After this whole thing blew up, none. And in this message, Neely explicitly told the coordinator to advise brides to use anyone else besides Polito. That's textbook interference.
Wow. Just directly telling someone influential not to recommend her.
Hmm.
And the civil conspiracy. How did they tie Andrew into it all alongside Neely?
The evidence suggested they worked together. Both were involved in contacting the media. Both were involved in spreading the negative statements online. It wasn't just one rogue actor. The court found evidence they acted in concert, planning and executing the campaign together.
So, in the end, their defense is claiming it was just opinion or substantially true. They just didn't hold up against the evidence Polito presented.
No, the court found Polito had provided clear and specific evidence to counter those defenses and establish her own claims. The evidence showed falsehood, malice, and damages.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this? For anyone who uses the internet, leaves reviews, shares opinions, I think the biggest takeaway comes from Polito's own attorney, who said it perfectly. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom from consequences. This case really throws that fine line into sharp relief, doesn't it? The line between a legitimate complaint, which we all have a right to make, and launching a malicious, damaging campaign based on falsehoods, especially now when you can publish something instantly to potentially millions.
Absolutely. It sets a pretty powerful precedent. It tells businesses and individuals, too, that if they are targeted by online attacks that are deliberate, false, and cause real harm, there are legal avenues. The courts can step in. It's a reminder that online actions have real-world consequences.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. And this raises an important question, maybe more of a challenge for all of us. How critically are we looking at the information we see online, especially these highly emotional, personal grievance stories that can go viral so quickly? We need to remember that behind the screen names and avatars are real people, real livelihoods. This case really highlights the legal system's role sometimes in protecting those livelihoods when online discourse crosses the line from criticism into destruction. It puts a bit of responsibility back on us, Engage thoughtfully.
Definitely. So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. Just consider the incredible power we all hold now with digital communication. Power to inform, yes, but also profound power to harm. How does a case like this maybe reshape your own understanding of accountability online? And perhaps what does it mean for how you engage, how you use your voice on these platforms going forward? Something to think about.